This fan base is amazing. The city of Cincinnati is amazing, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Desmond fakes a handoff, runs to the right. He's got all sorts of room to the 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Bearcats! 20, 25, toward the middle of the field at the 35, and he is gone! Trey Tucker will take it 98 yards to the house. A nip at night knockout as the Bearcats send a message to the college football world. Did you see that?
Howdy, folks. Welcome back to VIVA LA CATS, the Cincinnati podcast representing the 1012 network. I am your host, Justin Hiles, accompanied by my great friend, Steve Maurer, and we cover all things Bearcats every single week in our live reviews on Twitter Spaces, as well as our weekly episodes. So make sure to catch us everywhere that you can on all those platforms. We'd really love it if you could share some of our stuff. We went to Provo, and now we're back. That was quite an experience, and we can go into a lot of detail, but Steve, give us the highlights.
Yeah, I mean, I got to meet a bunch of great BYU fans, really enjoyed getting a chance to be able to interact with them. Like, obviously, you know, you kind of think, okay, these people can't be as nice as they say they are. No, even nicer. Like, everybody was coming up to us, couldn't be more nice. Like, I was just, you know, I was a little bit upset after we lost, obviously, but I don't know. Everybody was so kind, giving compliments, saying we played hard. And man, you know, I don't know if that's their, like, you know, killing them with kindness thing, but you know, it's really genuine though. Like, they're very kind people, welcoming, and I would recommend to anyone, not just Bearcats fans, but anyone, maybe not Utah, but anyone else that is in the current or future Big 12 to make a trip to Provo. You won't regret it.
That's very true. I could mirror all the things you've said. I think the biggest highlight is just how much fun of an atmosphere that was.
Yeah.
Again, you know, I think this will be the last time we'll shout them out for now. We're going to shout out Lot 18 because they made sure that we had a good time. If you go to Provo, let them know. Find somebody from Lot 18 and hit them up. They will take care of you.
They will make your school's food too. Like,
yes,
my brother was able
well.
to enjoy some skyline there. So like they will take good care of you.
Yeah. And so again, that trip I think was a lot of fun. Again, we would definitely recommend it. But as far as the game, which is what we're really here to talk about, not great, Scoob. There have definitely been better circumstances for the Bearcats through 5 weeks. This is not one of them. This is the first time the Bearcats have started off 2-3 in a long, long time. And so it's a bit of uncharted territory as of recent. And this is going to be, you know, I think it's going to be something that we're going to have to learn to adjust to. And that doesn't just come with, you know, losing your expectations of playing well. I think it's just an expectation of playing in a good conference. And I think the biggest thing that I could hit on this for this week, the weeks going forward, honestly, the entire season, is this, that teams aren't like what they were in the American. They will find a way to take advantage of those opportunities that they give you, and they will beat you down. And if you're not ready to take advantage of the opportunities they give you, which I think we have shown we are not, then it's going to be more of the same of what we've seen so far. And unfortunately, I think, you know, every game has felt like the Bearcats have played pretty well, except for 1, 2, maybe 3 plays that get out of hand. And then that's the game. And so that happened against Miami, that happened against Oklahoma, and that happened this weekend against Provo, against Provo University, against BYU. And so I think that's going to be one of those key things is it's going to be about perfection and execution. And I think until we really see that on all facets, it's going to be hard to take care of them.
Well, and here's the thing too, Justin. I think I was a little bit upset, you know, on Friday night, because this is my first time seeing the Bearcats play football live and in person since the 2021 conference championship game. So, you know, it's been a while, and then I left on that high note, and then obviously I've been watching all the games. It's been it's kind of been what we expected a little bit, maybe a couple things here and there that we wish could have gone different. But in reflection, Justin, I mean, there's still a lot of positive people on the Twitter space, on the app. I think there's a lot of people that are, realizing this is a tough conference. I just think it was always going to be tough for fans like me who really enjoyed the last 4 or 5 years under, the coach that's at Wisconsin now, and kind of wanted to keep that rolling. And maybe that wasn't realistic. Maybe that was, it was probably bad of me to just think, yeah, like we can be good. And I do think we have the talent. I do, like credit to the coaching staff for getting the talent. I just think there's a couple things that we can fix, but here's what I'm going to say, Justin. Here's my spin zone. We could have gotten blown out of these games. Like, I mean, I don't think Houston's gotten blown out, but they have not looked entirely competitive in their first 2 games. A couple double-digit score losses. We, on the other hand, Oklahoma, they took care of business last week against Iowa State at home, but holding them to 20 is pretty good for an offense that had otherwise scored 50-plus points in every other game. SMU. And then, BYU going on the road Friday night, like everybody was there too. Tough environment, but I think just the fact that we were so close in these games, I can kind of see both sides. I see the people that are like, we always knew it was going to be tough. I also see the people who are like that we can be playing better. And I agree. I mean, I think we could still play better while acknowledging. I think these sides, I haven't really been on Twitter much, but I don't know if these sides are fighting really, but I think everybody can just kind of come together over this bye week and say, it's tough, new conference, new league, but there are some things that we feel like we're pretty close on, and that if we just improve on those, it can look a little better over the next few weeks. Maybe this bye week is coming at the right time where you're able to do some corrections, fix some things, and then get back to hopefully another good game on next Saturday against Iowa State.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. I think the biggest thing here is just we're gonna have to learn to we're gonna have to take advantage of some of these situations. We're gonna have to take advantage of some teams that might not be that great coming down on our schedule, like Iowa State, like Baylor, have proven to be. And I think for us, the most important thing to pay attention to as we go through the rest of the season is just sort of managing expectations, because there is a bit of a divide. And I do agree that there are some points where you can argue that we should be far better than we are. And there are some points where you can argue this was the expectation. I mean, 2-3 going into, the bye week isn't optimal, but it's still 1 game off of expectation. You expected to beat Miami, you expected to beat EKU, but Pitt, Oklahoma, and BYU, many people chalked up to a loss at the beginning of the season. So if you're there, I mean, I think you're probably okay with where we're at, and you're just kind of upset that we haven't found a way to finish. But if you were expecting 4-1 or 5-0, you're going to be disappointed, and you should be disappointed because you shouldn't have had that expectation.
Yeah. And I'm going to put myself at blame here, Justin, because I've been, it's mostly been you that's been running the Viva La Cats Twitter account. Go follow us there if you're not already. But so I've been not taking over. I've been like adding a few things here and there during the season. And I kind of blame myself for just asking the question if we were one of the good teams in this league after the first 2 games. Obviously, FCS win, and then Pitt, who just lost on the road to Virginia Tech. Maybe those 2 wins aren't the strongest, but after the first 2 weeks it seemed like the rest of the good teams in our league and the teams on our schedule were really kind of crumbling around us. I kind of just had the idea that maybe, just maybe, we could have been better. And then obviously, that kind of went away after Miami a little bit. But I do think that, like I said, there's chance to fix things, get better. And, I don't want to say like we should eat humble pie and just go back, because I like when we're boisterous. I like when we're loud. I like when we're fighting with UCF fans over which the 21 team or the 2017 team, which of our teams was better. Hey, nice game for UCF, by the way. I saw that. We don't worry, we saw that still.
That's one of the biggest oofs of the season. Probably will be the biggest oof of the Big 12 this season.
Yeah, and let's just make sure that Baylor doesn't do that to us. So I want to be able to hold that over them. But anyway, Justin, you asked some of the people on Twitter today how they're feeling, some of their grades, some of their report cards. And I'm interested to hear, this is a people's show. We are fans. We're not analysts or commentators. We are still fans of the Bearcats. And I want to hear from you, Justin, what the fans think so far.
Yeah. So I figured that this week of all weeks would be a perfect week to add the bye-week report card. This week, we want to just figure out where people are sitting because we've heard so many different opinions. And I think overall, the easiest way to do that is to just give you a grade sheet. So basically, grade A through F, the Bearcats defense, offense, special teams, coaching, potential, and then your preseason / current grade. And then any other questions or comments. So I think the biggest thing here is really just trying to figure out where people's expectations were and if they are currently matching that or if they exceeding it or if they, are a little bit behind. And so we had a handful of responses here, but overall, I'll pull this one. I think Nick had some good points in here, so I'm going to use Nick's at Nick Bauer, NR Bauer. He said, this is what's so frustrating. 90% of the time, all of these grades are a B+ at worst. And then 10% of the time, it's an F. And I think he hit the nail on the head there. It's true because when you get to, when you get to like any point in these games and you look back at them after the final whistle, you're like, wow, I think the Bearcats played a great game. Everybody else would tell you the Bearcats played a great game. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, we lost by like 15 points. We lost by like 14 points. What happened? And so I think that's sort of the bewildering thing here. For specifics, his grades were a B- for defense, noting too many big scores, which I agree. B-, you need to score points. Also can agree with that. Special teams, a muffed punt, blocked field goal, some 2 big crucial mistakes over the past few games, which is very true. For coaching, a B-, potential an A, so overall a C+. And I think if I were to look at some of these overall grades or the preseason to current, pretty much everybody has said their preseason idea was a B or a C is how they would grade it. And where they're currently sitting is a C+, C, or C-. And I think that kind of reigns true. I think we would probably agree with that. This is by far not the most stellar season that the Bearcats have had. We are not able to really get a grasp of exactly what all this season will entail quite yet, but I think we've had a bit of a preview, unfortunately, of what we might see of some of the season. And hopefully, they come out of the bye week and can figure some things out. I remember using the specific words, God forbid you lose to BYU, and well, we lost to BYU. And so now we're sitting here at 2-3, and we're still trying to figure this thing out. I'm going to read off a couple more of these. I'm just going to kind of like combine some of these for defense. We've got a C, C+, a B, secondary, D line B. Those, I think some people were kind of interested there. And I'll throw some of this together in a graphic too to kind of make this better. But defense, more often than not, throughout a lot of this has been a B. Offense, C-, B-, D+, D+. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, O-line, that's all split up there. But another C or 2 in there as well. So I think a lot of people are kind of mixed on the offense, and that I think is to be expected with the outputs that we've had and the inability to help our defense out. I think this is sort of one of the frustrating things is because you come out of last season and you're like, all right, we were holding American teams to like anywhere between 20 and 30 points, or we were holding them under 20 points. And then you get to the Big 12, and so far, BYU scored 35. One of those you can't even attribute to the defense because it was the offense's fault. It was a pick 6. So automatically you're at a 27-point game, or sorry, 28. Good math there. And then, if you look even further, one of those is a muff punt that gives them situation at the within the 10-yard line. So now that's another 7 points that you could potentially take off the board. And of course, that's not great for the defense, but what can you expect inside the 10-yard line? Somebody's going to put points on the board. And so I think when you look at that, we've really been able to hold a lot of these teams to 20 points. It's just our offense, like last year, can they keep up? Can they help out our defense? Can they score enough to put us on top at the end of the game when your defense is actually doing their job? And I think that's really where the struggle has been so far this season and will continue to be. Special teams is pretty much a B- across the board. Nothing really specific there. I think Carter Brown has been a really solid addition, other than that block kick, which honestly, I don't think you can even blame the kicker there. I think the guys jumped the line by the time that he even got to the ball. So that's, that one block kick is not going to be a black mark on his season, because he's definitely done a fantastic job thus far, and major improvement over last year as well. And then kind of to round this off, coaching is, I think people are actually a bit lighter on the coaching than I would have expected. I thought a lot of people would have been a little bit more aggressive when it comes to that. We've got a few D's in there, but pretty much everyone else has been a B or like a C+. And I think that that's probably fair. I think there's definitely been some play calling things that have really, thrown some wrenches in there, but I think a lot of people pulled off of Satterfield, pulled off of the coaches after the BYU game, because then you kind of saw immediately, it's like, all right, the game plan is working. And this is one thing that I really wanted to write about this week, and I might still do. But if you look at what Satterfield's game plan is, he wants a balanced approach, and he wants to be aggressive, and he wants to put yards on the board. And he has done that offensively, defensively. The defense has done their job. 500 plus yards of offense and pretty much 50-50 split down the middle between running and passing. You have all of that on the board, and yet all of a sudden, you have a pick six and a muffed punt. Like, those things are out of a coach's hands. A coach, it doesn't matter what you do, like special teams, that can go back on coaching there, but a muffed punt just happens sometimes. And that was a sticky situation. A pick six, you can train to get a little bit better of an eye, but still a coach is not on the field at that point. So I think what his game plan has worked. It's just getting that extra conversion. I think if he was converting those extra points, A, we're winning these games, and B, I don't think anybody's going to have any gripes about Scott Satterfield, because we're winning these games. Then overall potential, I think, has just been pretty much a B across the board, B or A for the rest of the season. So there's our report card.
Yeah. So here's, and I don't want to belabor that too much. I pretty much agree with you on that. Here's just the thing that I've noticed. It's just like, it just seems like there's a lack of explosive plays for the offense. It's a lot of chunk yardage. It's a lot of 6, 5, 6, 8, 10. Which is good for sure, but I just it's not really as much about the explosive plays. Like right now, on plays of 20 or more yards, we are because against everybody, we're pretty high. But if you take out that EKU game, we're tied for 38th with only 21 explosive plays over 20 yards, only 6 of over 30. So, and there's only one play of 40, 50, or 60 each, and I think that's the Corey Kiner run from the Pitt game. So, it's hard, obviously, to come by those explosive plays, but it's just something that we've been giving up too many of them, and we're not able to throw that big punch back. Like, that jailbreak, just toss up a ball and then BYU scores on that long pass play. There was defenders on Keaton Slovis, and he just got that ball out just in the nick of time, and then we weren't able to catch the man who caught the ball. And obviously, that pick six and the muff punt, which I will push back a little bit on. That should be coaching a little bit, Justin, because at some point, balls bouncing over your head, you should know, okay, I just got to get away from it. I understand he was probably trying to save some yards and not start at the 1 yard line, but I think just keeping the ball is obviously most important in that situation. So I would probably stay around that B- C range for us. I do think that there's some ways that they could be overachieving that they're not able to right now. And then, I don't think I don't really think Pitt is that bad of a team, but they're 1-4 and we're 2-3, and we ended up beating them by 3 points. So, it's like, I don't want to, I think I got to probably start taking that out of, how I felt, and then just take into account like the last 3 games. And it's just a little bit frustrating because I think we know the talent is there, and it's just a little bit like, just hard, right now. Obviously, after we, like I said, last game I was in person for was that awesome game against Houston. Defense was great, offense was great. And I've been watching all the games. Like I said, it was just a little bit hard for me to be there in person and see that. And believe me, folks, I've been in the building for some bad Bearcat losses. I was there for 51-3 against USF. I was there for that UCF game. Like, most of the bad losses at the end of the Tuberville era and the start of the Fickle era, buddy, I was there for. So I'm no stranger to that, but I just hadn't seen in a while. I think that's all.
Yeah. I mean, for reference, my last game that I watched was the one that really just ended the era, the Tulane game at home last year. So that one was fun. So I've seen 2 straight losses in a row now. And before that, I had not seen a game in a while. So it does kind of suck, when you put your time and your money in, and then, sometimes all you get out is just a big fat L, but you also have to look at the rest of the experience, and it is a lot of fun. So don't get caught up if you're sad about a loss. Remember, it was worth the money still. It was fun, even if it's a loss, as long as you don't get blown out by 30. Report cards aside, I think, like I said, we've got a lot to look forward to still for the rest of the season. I don't think it's quite a wash yet. We're only 5 games in. You still got a handful left. You've got a lot of winnable games on the schedule. I think you have opportunities against, Baylor and Iowa State coming up that look like 2 very beatable teams. You also have UCF, who now also looks like a beatable team, a little bit more than maybe we expected. And again, all 3 of those are at home. And then aside from that, you have West Virginia, Kansas, and Houston on the road. Again, also, 3 of those teams I think are also very beatable. I think what hurts the most for a lot of Bearcats fans, you look at where the season has gone so far. This is the point that you are going to take advantage of your schedule early, if you were going to take advantage of your schedule. We have the easiest strength of schedule out of anybody in the Big 12, but the hardest games came at BYU and came at home against Oklahoma. And those 2 ones, you really want to take advantage of. The Miami one, of course, just sucks, but you wanted to take advantage of that early bit of your schedule, because if you can win those, you can run. You can run real fast through the rest of your schedule. And I think that's where our upside is. Again, you have so many winnable games left that you can't just be out. And if you are out, I don't know why you're listening to us, because you're really not a true Bearcats fan if you're out after 5 games. You got to be watching all these, and you got to be really in for it. And it's going to be tough under a first year under Scott Satterfield, but I think like I said, there's still a lot of upside and there's a lot of promise left. We've seen all of the flashes. Now we just need to go from the first whistle to the final whistle and try to stay clean and try to not get taken advantage of like we have been so far. So
and if you're out on football season, we're about to talk basketball. So
yeah.
Hey there, folks. We just want to take a quick break to share this message from our friends over at Charlie Hustle Clothing Co. Now, these guys bring the heat all winter long. They give you many, many options for the fall football season, as well as going through the basketball season through winter. They're comfortable. They're cozy. They have plenty of vintage options for over 30 different schools, cover just about all of the Big 12. And there's a wide variety. So if you want to do some shopping for that cousin or aunt that you might not have something for, or maybe your grandpa needs a new Iowa State t-shirt or something like that, go check out charliehustle.com. That is www.charliehustle.com, and use the promo code from our network 1012. That is 101215 101215 to get 15% off of all non-sale items from Charlie Hustle. And remember, if you want vintage and you want it fresh, you're going to get it from Charlie Hustle.
Thank you. Yeah, we're in a point now where we've hit October. This is our first official October podcast, so it's almost basketball season. We're getting really close. And I think the best way to kind of highlight that, of course, we did have the schedule that released recently, but Wes had his presser today where he kind of overviewed some things. And I just wanted to sort of run through some of the things that he mentioned. I listened through the whole thing, quick 20 minutes, but he made some good points, and it's just nice to have some updates. Of course, we're still waiting on the waivers for Aziz and Jamil. I think that is really going to determine how we feel going into even playing our non-conference cupcakes versus how we're going to feel, looking at March from, basically October. And so until we get those answers, I think it's going to be tough. One thing I did notice, so he did talk a good amount about Jamil, not as much about Aziz, but specifically about Jamil. And I'm not going to say anything about like any player situation because I totally believe all of that. And, players should be able to change stuff as much as they want because I firmly believe that. And I think the whole waiver rejection thing is fucking stupid. It's real dumb. And
it's the coaches who did it. So
yes,
don't listen to any of those coaches who were complaining about it because they were the ones that wanted it. So
correct.
Please continue.
But with the coaching changes at Temple, with coaching changes at whatever Utah, I can't remember where these came
Utah
from.
Valley. We were just there.
Utah
Come on,
Valley,
Justin.
thank you. Also in Provo. With the changes at those head coaching positions, I think they're going to have a bit of an advantage, and that should hopefully keep them in the clear. We've seen that isn't always going to be the case, but he did talk a lot about Jamil's sort of like mental improvements and the mental shift and why he came to Cincinnati. And I think that like that, not necessarily saying as an angle, but making that clear, I think from the coaching side, I think is really important too, because that shows that like, this is not just like, oh, I want to go to another team, whatever. It's like, you need that mental clarity. You need that shift. You need to do what's good for you. And I really hope that the NCAA understands that and can really apply that to these situations because these guys really do need these changes. However, he did say specifically on Jamil that he made massive improvements in the offseason and is really molding into a sort of like key player that they're going to need, which of course I think we all understand, which is why this is very important to us. But he said they lost 45 pounds, which is huge because Jamil is a big guy for sure. And he is definitely that bruiser down low. But I think the losing that much weight really quick just goes to show what the strength and conditioning program offers with Cincinnati, but also goes to show what type of player Wes and Jamil want to have, both for himself and for the team. And so he said he's got a lot quicker, more agile. He's really good. He's a really good passer. And the way he's been trying to match him up, he's been trying to put him against guards as far as defense goes. And so if he can really mold Jamil into that like 5, friend of the show, favorite Trey Scott, that's what I want. Like I as much as we want the Shaq type, I really think having that player that can threaten you from the 3, that can guard every single position, that is really nimble with the ball and has a dominant post presence and can do all of those things, that is the NBA mold. And that is really dominant in college basketball. You see it all the time. And so
I thought you were going to say Quadri more, because dominant around the rim, shoots 3, or Mamadou, honestly, shoots 3s. So no, I agree though. Justin, I'm going to be like our buddy Coomer real quick. Did he say anything about Aziz? Because it is interesting that he mentioned a lot about Jamil and pumped up Jamil a lot if he did not say anything about Aziz.
He really didn't. I think there was a question specifically about Jamil, which prompted the more in-depth response versus like, the question at the top. Like first question, hey guys, what's up? What's the what's the information on Aziz and Jamil's waivers? Like that was out the gate, but I think later on he went into detail because of the question. So
okay, well, that's good to know. But it is kind of interesting though that if he was asked about Jamil, he didn't really say anything about Aziz either. I'm just kind of pointing that out. That it's just interesting, it's a point of emphasis that if he's not saying anything good or bad about Aziz, I wish I would have liked to hear something at least. So
Yeah, and I think that, there's going to be a lot more left. And so, I mean, I don't necessarily want to make something of nothing too. And so that's kind of where I think that angle is like, it's just about pumping up Jameel. I think ultimately, if we can get both of those guys down there, it's going to be really important. One thing he did mention, which specifically talking about the use of Jameel, the use of the players on the team is I think they're restructuring the team and rebuilding the roster in the way that they see fit to play, not only in the Big 12, but to play the most amount of teams possible. And specifically, I mean by that, the way that they're structuring the team is to have lineups that you can interchange, where you can have that short lineup or like that short and quick lineup. You can have that big and tall lineup. You can have that heavy bruiser type of lineup. You can have the really positionless, heavy forward, power forward, stretch four type, setup. You can really vary a lot of your, systematic approaches so that you can play and match what a team is throwing at you versus being stuck with one thing. And that's kind of where I see it. And I don't know if he's speaking specifically on like the live and die by the three kind of thing. But that's the way I perceive it, is because a lot of what we've seen so far from Wes has been, he has a system. It is a live and die by the three. There were a few other pieces that fit in there, but I think ultimately that system, of course, a very UNC type of system, a very Roy Williams type of system. I think that now he's starting to, with not only the NIL and with the players that you can recruit into Cincinnati, he's starting to be able to build out the roster to really be a type of team that can match up. And that's really important because in the Big 12, you're going to face a lot of different teams that, ultimately it might not be in the cards for you just playing that team strictly because of the way that you play basketball. And that we saw that a lot with a lot of the Mick Cronin teams, where that heavily defensive team is fantastic for about 80% of the American teams. But then when you go play another big Power 5 team, when you go play a Xavier who wants to shoot the lights out, wants to score 90 on you every game, you can't keep up. And so I think if we can really try to vary our approach game by game, I think that's going to be super crucial going forward. And I think we're seeing some of that.
Well, and we saw too that he just Mick would build his roster specifically to get through Big East play, but then obviously we had so many early exits because we were not built, like you said, to play other conferences. So yeah, I definitely get that. And then obviously playing Kansas this year, playing Arizona next year, I think Colorado has a good program incoming too. There's a lot of good teams that we're about to play, and we're about to get a whole nother level.
Yeah. Yeah. And the last few points on this, he did highlight that CJ has been pretty healthy, which is good because apparently CJ has not actually been able to participate in offseason practices for like a long time. And so he's already been able to work over the summer. And so that's good to get him mixed in there. And then of course, also noted with Day Day and Jizzle, not necessarily having the D1 experience. He's going to try to be getting them up to speed, but at the same time, you also do have from Seamus the ability to have somebody who can play a tall point guard kind of situation. It's sort of like Ben Simmons type thing where you have a really tall point guard. We're not talking specifically about Ben Simmons. I'm talking about the build at the point guard position. A LeBron James, is that better at the point guard position? A guy who can pass and shoot the ball. And so I think that's kind of one of those situations where, again, you could look at that tall lineup and you could say, all right, well, we could throw 3 forwards in there. And then on top of that, we could put Seamus at point guard and then have, our tallest shooting guard in there. Next thing you know, you have an average height for your lineup at like 6'7", versus what I think a lot of this team is going to have with Day Day and Jizzle and our shooting guards. You're going to be looking more at like a 6'5", and so that, I think that balance is going to be really important to be able to match up with some of these tall, really, really heavily basket emphasized Big 12 teams. So we've talked a bunch on that. That really covers everything from football through basketball. Again, I think our non-conference schedule looks pretty interesting. I think it's going to be fairly winnable. We'll see how all that materializes. I think it's going to, again, hedge on a lot of those players. Bearcats.
I can do it,
Get us
baby.
out the
Here we
door.
go. I just drank an energy drink, accelerator, not really, but here we go. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Soccer team. They drew at BYU, number 6 BYU on Thursday. Unfortunately, lost to Texas Tech on Sunday. They will host both Oklahoma State and Oklahoma this weekend at Gettler. Do the Oklahoma double. Soccer team. Let's get those dubs. Volleyball defeated K-State 3-1 on Saturday and will play at TCU Friday and Saturday. Women's golf competed at K-State on Monday and Tuesday. Men's golf, they head to Houston on Monday and Tuesday next week for Big 12 match play. Tennis, Bearcats won 6 singles and 1 doubles match in the Hoosier Classic this weekend. They are hosting the Pam Whitehead Invitational this weekend. Swim and dive starts their season with the Red Black meet this weekend at Keating Natatorium. And in hockey, they play a home and home this weekend with the Ohio Bobcats. So that's your quick little wrap up of Bearcat sports. Go ahead and go out and support those teams. They wear red and black just like football and basketball do, and they deserve your support just as much. Let's go.
Let's go, baby. Well, Steve, thank you for running through that. Like I said, we've got a pretty short show for you this week. We are going to have another one again for you next week with Iowa State. Of course, we won't have the spaces this weekend as there is no game to cover for football, but be on the lookout for some more content coming up. So thank you guys for listening this week. We really appreciate it. And again, keep interacting with us, keep sending us some mailbag stuff, some questions. We love answering those, and we're going to try to keep you more involved that way. So take it easy, guys. Remember, Viva.